Hi everyone, and welcome back to Real Estate Unlocked, your go-to mini-series where we break down everything you need to know about buying and selling a home. In today's episode, we're talking about Section 9, Sellers' Representations and Warranties in the Manitoba Offer to Purchase. This section is where the seller makes legal promises about the property, and those promises don't just matter on offer day, but all the way through to possession. So let's break it down. So first off, what are representations and warranties? These are statements that the seller is formally standing behind. Basically, they're saying, to the best of my knowledge, these things about the property are true. If any of these statements turn out to be untrue, then this section can have some serious consequences, which is why accuracy and disclosure are crucial. So, as a seller, if you do not know something to be true, it's really important to note that. Part 1 is all about the changes to the standard warranties listed in Part 2. This is where any additions, exclusions, or amendments are going to be made. If the seller cannot make one of the promises listed in Part 2, then it must be clearly excluded or modified here. If nothing is changed and all the standard warranties apply in full, then none is going to be noted here. So Part 2 lays out the representations and warranties that the seller is making unless otherwise stated. We're going to walk through these one by one. The first one is about encroachment. The seller warrants that there are no neighboring structures encroaching onto the property and that no structures on the property are encroaching onto neighboring land, public easements, or services. This protects buyers from future boundary disputes and costly legal issues. The second is about the water account. So this confirms that the water account has been paid in full based on an actual meter reading taken within 90 days of possession. This ensures that the buyer doesn't inherit any unpaid utility charges. The third is about zoning and use. So the seller warrants that the property and its current use comply with all applicable zoning regulations and any registered building or use restrictions. The fourth relates to permits, and this is a big one. Here, the seller is confirming two things. So the first, that any improvements made during their ownership had all required permits properly obtained and closed. And the second is that they are not aware of any improvements completed prior to their ownership that required permits which were not obtained or finalized. So this warranty often surprises people because sellers don't really realize what work actually requires a permit. So even something like adding in an extra electrical outlet or adding in additional lighting, those things may require a permit. Because of that, this is one of the warranties that we commonly see modified or excluded in Part 1 of the offer. And it's really important for sellers to think carefully about what work that's been done and to have an honest conversation with their realtor before making any promises. Another key warranty involves material latent defects. So these defects are things that are not easily visible on inspection, they're known to the seller, and they make the property unsafe or unfit for residential use without repair. So these must be disclosed to any buyers and they must be in writing. Condition of the property. So unless otherwise stated, the seller warrants that the property will be in substantially the same condition on possession day as it was when the contract was signed. Normal wear and tear are expected, fixtures and included chattels. So unless disclosed, the seller also warrants that any fixtures or included chattels with electrical, plumbing, mechanical, heating, ventilation components will be in proper working order on possession day. This can be a tricky one too, because proper working order is a little bit subjective. If somebody has a dishwasher that is 20 years old and it is still working, that is proper working order for that age of the dishwasher. It cannot be expected to work like something that is brand new. So legal ownership and right to sell. The seller confirms that they are the registered and beneficial owner of the property or that they have legal authority to sell it. If any fixtures or chattels are rented or financed, then the seller agrees to pay them out unless otherwise stated in the offer. GST. So the seller represents that the sale is either fully exempt from GST or if it's not exempt, purchase price already includes the applicable GST. So this prevents any unexpected tax issues after closing. Typically with GST, this usually only applies to new builds or homes that have been substantially renovated. No competing agreement. So the seller also warrants that aside from this contract, there are no other agreements or options to buy, sell, or lease the property unless it's clearly disclosed. The final and ongoing warranty. So this section ends with something that's really important. The seller is confirming that all of these representations and warranties are true at the time this offer is signed and will continue to be true all the way through to completion on possession date. This means that these promises don't expire once conditions are removed. They carry through until closing. So Section 9 is really important because it creates clear legal protection and transparency for both parties. This is why it was added as a standard clause in the new offer to purchase. For buyers, it provides reassurance by clearly outlining what the seller is legally confirming about the property. And for sellers, it clearly defines what they are warranting. It highlights where disclosures or exclusions need to be made to avoid future issue. That's it for this week's episode of Real Estate Unlocked. If you found this helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow along as we continue breaking down the Manitoba Offer to Purchase section by section. We'll see you next week.